Hitting you with a little vintage St. Louis action this morning. This is Good Morning Football. Buenos dias, MJ, Willie, Isaac, and Rodney. You've been on the show before, but first time as a co-host, period. Welcome, my friend. How are you feeling in this early wake-up call?
Yeah, feeling great. We're ready to get after it.
Can say he was bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, even when we were very, very early, dark and early, as I like to say here. Fantastic. I'm so excited to have all of you guys here. Willie, our sockless connoisseur, rocking. This is theme of the day, and I'm so excited about this because I'm learning. I'm learning new things. All right, let's start Saturday at BMO Stadium right here in Los Angeles, out there as well. So let's get into a little Eagles discussion, especially, with Rodney sitting right here. So how are you feeling about the Eagles right now, Rodney?
Man, I've been very surprised, to be honest. Like, it's been a very odd offseason for the Eagles, but it's starting with how many people they let walk out the door. You know, when you look at guys like Reed Blankenship, Nakobe Dean, Jalen Phillips, like, those are guys that produced a lot for this defense, and we know how much the defense meant to the Eagles last year. Even though they fell short, that was their bread and butter last year, surprisingly. And so to have all of those guys leave out, again, it was just very, very surprising for me, because how do you replace those guys? Thinking about even the year before that when they won the Super Bowl, losing guys like Milton Williams, Big Play Slay, you know, they took a hit there, and it showed itself. So, you know, when I'm looking at them right now, Howie Roseman, I always trusted him. I know he's cooking up something in the kitchen, but again, like, how do you replace this level of production in a defense that you counted on a lot last year to keep you in football games? And so I'm curious to see how they do it going forward.
Yeah, Rodney, it's a good point. I'm curious, too, but what I will say is they let a lot walk, but they did bring some pieces in that I think are really important. You got to think about Sean Mannion. Mannion coming in as an OC, I think, is one of the biggest pieces that they could have. Because when I look at the Eagles and I look at them over the last few years and their OCs, they've had success with offensive coordinators that have had a really good read on the dual-threat quarterback, right? Like, if you look at Petula last year, he wasn't a guy that had a history working with a lot of dual-threat quarterbacks. You look at Mannion now, worked with Jordan Love. Really, what Malik Willis did last year, like, worked with him, fostered that all year, and then you look how successful he was. And I'm thinking about him with the Eagles. I think it's going to be great. We're going to look at these play-action passes from the last couple years. They got to get back to the play-action pass. And what I think Mannion's going to do is he's going to put Hurts in a situation where he can be successful because he gets a style of play. That's going to create a situation where then Barkley can become who Saquon Barkley is. I think people forgot that Saquon Barkley was on this roster, by the way. Like, one of the best running backs in the NFL is still there. And then that just creates this yin and yang. It's just going to go back and forth all year. You got the great run that opens it up for Jalen Hurts, and then it's like, oh, wait, we can still run the ball with Saquon Barkley. And I think that's the kind of mentality Mannion's going to bring if you look at his career, and I'm really excited about that. And one thing I have to say is I love that a flag football game with Logan Paul has given us topics to talk about. Can we just take a second for that? It's 2026. We've come a long way, Willie.
Yeah, listen, I was just happy nobody got seriously hurt. I heard there was speculation that Gronk got hurt, but he's retired, so he'll be okay. But nevertheless, man, I expect the Eagles to be a competitive outfit. I know we're all talking about all these guys leaving the locker room, but I look at it like this. The Eagles were prepared for that. You talk about Nakobe Dean, who was injury-prone, was asked to leave, or let go, rather. Well, they replaced him with Jahad Campbell, who they drafted out of Alabama. You talk about Jalen Phillips. They couldn't afford him. You talk about losing Johanna Dotson. Well, they re-up and got Hollywood Brown. The Eagles were prepared for this turnover. Nevertheless, man, they were able to sign Jordan Davis. You talk about also getting Dallas Goedert signed. And I think the biggest question right now is what happens with A.J. Brown, because in my eyes, Howie Roseman this time of year, who I think is phenomenal, he has 9 draft picks going into this draft. They have to find a way to keep A.J. Brown in the...
Great point, Willie, but I would counter that. You know, you talked about Nakobe Dean, Jahad Campbell. You know, Jahad Campbell, he started the season all because of Dean's injury, but as Dean got into the picture, he took his spot, and we saw Campbell's his level of play be reduced because of Nakobe Dean's performance, right? We all know your performance rewards your playing time. And so with that, Nakobe Dean was a factor. By the end of the season, he was a guy that you were circling every week as a disruptor. 40% pressure rate and win rate that he demonstrated, which was the best for the off-the-ball linebacker from the inside linebacker position. And then when we think about Reed Blankenship, 8 interceptions over his course of his career. All the guys that have worn the Eagles uniform before, Cooper DeJean, only 2 picks. Quinyon Mitchell, 0. Marcus Epps, 3 interceptions. And Makuba, 2. Again, this is a guy who gets to the football, and how are you going to now turn over the ball as much as Reed Blankenship brought to you? Now, again, those guys are going to have to step up in a major way. But Nakobe Dean is a huge factor, and also Jalen Phillips. You're losing a lot of disruption up front.
Willie, you did bring up the A.J. Brown of it all, and I do want to dig into that a little bit more, because how does I feel like the entire complexion of this offense really changes if he's not there, if he's not in the building. There has been a lot of tension, there has been a lot of strife there, but I still think if you figure out a way to make this work, make this man happy, and figure out the scheme that best puts him in a position, that changes everything for this Eagles team, Rodney.
Agreed. A.J. Brown is a huge factor for this Eagles team. And the biggest thing just goes to I think the relationship between him and a lot of turmoil coming out of the locker room is where we saw a great drop-off. And so any quarterback and receiver, the best of the best, they have that relationship on and off the field that allows him to perform at the highest level. So if they want to get back to the A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts connection that we know it to be, they'll need to make sure they patch up that quickly as possible.
Honestly, Rodney, that's spot on. Because it's like, and Willie, I agree with you. They got to find a way to keep A.J. in the building. Like, he's a special receiver, and it changes the whole dynamic of your offense if you don't have him. But it's this two-headed monster where it's like, keep him in the building, but also find a dynamic that works, because you don't need step one, and it's the biggest piece. Having him in the locker room is the biggest piece, but can the energy pick up from what it was last year?
Yeah. We can't talk about this offense and not talk about the offensive line, right? Because nobody wants to talk about the big guys until it's an issue. Poor guys, they do all the work at little credit until somebody wants to blame somebody. Willie, I mean, they really have to get this offensive line going. That is exactly when the Eagles are at full tilt, especially when it comes to the run game and getting Saquon opening lanes up for him.
Yeah, they just need to get younger fast, man. You talk about Lane Johnson being 36. He's had his injury woes. Talk about Cam. You talk about Jurgens and Dickerson. Those guys have both had their spells with injuries. Nevertheless, man, Isaac talked about where's Saquon Barkley. Well, you're not going to find him if this offensive line doesn't get healed up and ready to roll, man. So I expect them to go into the draft to get some big, young, big, ugly guys who love to put hands on other folks and be aggressive. And I think at the end of the day, just to circle back to A.J. Brown, man, I think A.J. Brown's message has been consistent. Get me the ball, right? Just get me the ball, because I'm the #1 receiver. I should average 9 to 10 targets a game. And the reason why he's effective and when he's effective is because of what Isaac talked about earlier, the play action. And the play action is really, it stems from being able to run the ball at an efficient level. The Eagles were at his best when Saquon was able to run between the tackles. Saquon was bought to Philadelphia, to be that guy, that dynamic running back between the tackles, also be a third down threat. We didn't see that last year because of everything that the offensive line went through. But if you're the Eagles going into the season, you have to address it. I imagine they will address it in the draft. But really, you got to figure out, all right, even with some of the deficiencies that we have on the offensive line, how can we still get Saquon immersed into the offense where he's a factor and that we can find him on tape? Because there's times you go into week after week, you question the identity of the Eagles solely because you couldn't find Saquon Barkley on tape. That's something they're going to have to address coming into the season.
Yeah, no question. But still, the nucleus of all of this, Jalen Hurts. Rodney, obviously, yep. You guys are close. Can you share anything about his progression this offseason, what it's been like, any conversations you've had?
No conversations with Jalen recently, but just my time with him, from when he came in as a rookie to what I see now is everything that he showed me in those 2 years that I spent with him in the locker room. Just knowing his pedigree, his work ethic.
Rodney, I love it, but I feel like what we really need to talk about is how he's reached Jameis Winston level with his quote. I mean, I need a whole segment.
Give us an example.
Give me the Hurts quote of the week. I mean, this guy is quietly one of the best quote guys in the NFL, and it's
Which
impressive.
one sticks out to you?
I don't even know. I just I picture him with the little old school hat that Willie probably has,
I'm
just sitting there, you know, doing interviews, just like perfect. I mean,
yeah.
I need the quote of the week. I need the quote of the week every week on this show. It's a segment.
Agree. He is an old soul somehow. What did the kids say? He's got aura.
He's got aura.